It's a good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy, Millsy, back with the Hometown Commander Rick for another episode of $50 Upgrades, the show where I take a Precon and give you my suggested $50 upgrades on my quest of brew the magic world. You know the motto, baby. It's ABB, always be brewing, and that's what we're back to do today. The deck list is going to be down in the description below, as well as I'd really appreciate it if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe, do all that great YouTube stuff. But today, we're taking a look at the Mardu Surge Precon from Tarkir Dragonstorm, helmed up by Zurgo Storm Render. Mardu, 3-mana, 3/3 Orc Warrior with Mobilize, the new Mobilize mechanic. Whenever this creature attacks, you're going to get a tapped and attacking Red Warrior creature token that sacks at the beginning of the next end step. And you patch a really good line of text after it. Whenever a creature token you control leaves the battlefield, you draw a card if it was attacking. Otherwise, each opponent loses a life. I really like this ability, and I think what makes Zurgo such a strong commander is, in most of scenarios, you're going to kind of choose where and when you can get this trigger to go off. You know, some of your warriors or the tokens you're making on attack are going to die in the combat, and so you're going to get the cards there, but otherwise you're going to have that life loss, and Zurgo really wants to get aristocrats, it really wants to get attacking and make tokens, and you really just want to overwhelm your opponents. I think the thing on the front of this deck is right spot on. Make those tokens, sack them for value. That's all we're going to try to do, and that is the goal for these upgrades as well. I want to thank my channel members. If you're interested in seeing all of our videos early, check out the link below the deck, the video for just $1 a month. But all right, as far as our ads go, remember the goal of our deck is make tokens on attack, sacrifice tokens, profit. Right? A lot of ways we can do this. And I think we're going to add some pieces around it. An Pakal is a way to make tokens on attack. On attack, you put a counter on her, make a bunch of gnomes equal to the number of counters on her. Those gnomes come in tapped and attacking. Again, fulfill Zurgo's second ability if they die. Arabella is one of a couple cards that we could add to the deck to start damaging our opponents when we're actually attacking. So that doesn't just have to be the tokens dying. Arabella says whenever she attacks, it deals X damage to each opponent and we gain X. X is the number of creatures we control with power 2 or less. Almost all the creatures in our deck that make tokens on attack make 1/1s, so Arabella is going to see those. And we can really make sure we're using those triggers, how we set them up on the stack, so we can get the most damage out of it. Bartolome is a great option for a unconditional creature sacrifice outlet. We could sack creature at any time, just put a counter on Bartolome. It can not only grow Bartolome, but this is really nice because then we can sack them whenever we want to, whether it be in combat or after combat, depending if we need the card or we want the life loss drain. Caesar, the popular commander from the Mardu Precon from the Fallout set, I feel like works really well here because not only does it add in more tokens that come in tapped and attacking, but it has that nice third ability to deal damage equal to the number of creature tokens we control to target opponent. It start doling out damage during combat as we're trying to do all these other things we can with our tokens. I think Cathars Crusade is probably just a no-brainer. I think this really just helps turn all these 1/1s that come in into even bigger threats because each of them sees themselves come in and is going to get a counter, right? Turning 1/1s into potentially 3/3s or 4/4s. Just make them harder to deal with and harder for our opponents to really effectively just jump block out of the way, right? Can really help hit them harder. It just only feels right to bring Crackling Doom into the deck. It's not, this is the original Mardu spell from Khans of Tarkir. Deals 2 to everybody, and then everybody sacrifices a creature with the highest power among creatures they control. This just, it only feels right in a Mardu Precon, right, to bring in Crackling Doom and use it as some removal. We're also playing the new one, Inevitable Defeat. Spell can't be countered. You just exile a non-land permanent. Its controller loses 3 and we gain 3. Again, hitting any non-land permanent is huge, and exiling it's even better, right? As then it can't be, reanimated out of the graveyard or anything like that. Elas il-Kor kind of plays a dual threat in our deck. It gains us life when our creatures come in, and everybody loses a life when our creatures die, right? Doubles up on that nice ability from Zurgo on the bottom half, and just helps hopefully keep us afloat with some life gain. But I think in any deck where you're trying to attack, Isshin just makes a ton of sense. Whenever attacking calls a triggered ability of a permanent we control a trigger, it triggers an additional time, leading to more mobilized triggers, more everything, and just more tokens and more value overall. Krenko is another great attacker that makes tokens. It doesn't make them tapped and attacking, but it does still make tokens. Whenever it attacks, you put a counter on it, make goblins equal to its power. Again, more tokens equals better, right? Especially when we have other ways to sacrifice them. Mardu Ascendancy. It says whenever a non-token creature we control attacks, we get a 1/1 goblin. Again, that can be more tokens on the board, right? Mirkwood Bats kind of pays us off both ways. Whenever we create or sack a token, we have each opponent lose a life. Very useful on both the front and back end, right? Because we want to sack our creature tokens and we want to get them, right? So you're getting life either way. Mishra is another one of our creatures that can get some damage in on attacks. Whenever we attack, Mishra doesn't even have to attack. Each opponent loses X and we gain X, where X is the number of attacking creatures. The good thing to remember with this ability, and anything that says attacking, is it doesn't mean creatures that actually declared an attack. It means creatures that are attacking. So what you can do with Mishra is stack all of your mobilize and all your triggers above it, so all those warriors come in tapped and attacking, gnomes, whatever you may have. And then Mishra is going to count and see all those extra numbers and get way more damage off on our opponents. Plumb the Forbidden, I think, is a card that feels really good here because... So additional cost to cast the spell, we can sacrifice one or more creatures. When we do, copy the spell for each creature sacrificed this way. So we draw a card and lose a life for each creature we sacrifice. We get more of them, basically drawing us a life and hopefully getting that. Like my thought here is you sacrifice them, not in combat. So you still get the damage from Zurgo, but you're also drawing the cards as well, kind of giving you the best of both worlds. Teysa Karlov can double up a lot of triggers in the deck. If a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent we control to trigger, it goes off an additional time. This will double up either half of Zurgo's ability, either drawing us 2 or everybody losing 2, and gives our tokens lifelink, which is huge, just to start gaining us some life back, right, as we're going to be attacking. We're probably not going to have a ton of things back to block. Toby is a great way to start having our tokens make sure they get in every turn. So as we have 4 more creature tokens, everything gets flying. A huge ability, right, to really help us make sure those warriors are getting through every turn. Warleader's Call here is a nod to what you could build the deck into a little bit more of dealing damage to your opponent whenever things come in, since we're making so many tokens each combat, right? Doling out some damage that way and then buffing all of our creatures. I mean, 10 2/2s are a whole lot better than 10 1/1s, right? Depending on how and where they attack, so that's really useful. And then, of course, we gotta play the new Windcrag Siege. Its top ability is the same thing as Isshin, doubling up on every trigger that comes off from a creature attacking. And if we needed to, the bottom step could get us a token every turn, but I think the top just makes more sense, doubling up every mobilized trigger, all these other triggers, and just making sure that we're dealing big damage to our opponent. We're adding in another Aristocrat's trigger in Zulaport Cutthroat. We're going to add a few of these, as you've seen over the thing. Whenever a creature dies, each opponent loses 1, and this one gains us 1 back, which is really cool too. And then we have the Zurgo from the main set, which has mobilized 2, and it adds another text where it says, during your end step, warrior tokens you control have this token can't be sacrificed. So this is mainly meant to stop you from sacrificing your warriors that you get off the mobilize in your end step. This may seem like a non-bow, right? Because we're basically wanting them to die for Zurgo's ability, our main one. But here's the thing to remember. They just get that in your end step. If we sack them before our end step, we still get the ability. If we sack them during combat or they die during combat, we still get the abilities. I kind of like this because it's a good mobilize payoff. And if we wanted to truly go wide, right, this Zurgo is going to help us do that in keeping our creatures around. I'm not going to go through every card that I cut. I think there's a lot of good cards in the deck, especially some of the ones that we had to cut. So what I'm just going to do is take the highlights of the cards that I really wanted to keep in. I just couldn't for the spots. I like the idea of Blade of Selves. This is a card that I think there are some great targets in the deck, but there also aren't some as well. If you have a lot of non-token creatures that you want to give Myriad to, things in the deck that either do things on ETB or things like that, they could be really nice Myriad targets. But the truth is, I really think in order for our deck to shine, we need to add more attack triggers that make tokens and more, Aristocrats payoffs, and that's why I took that one out. I like the idea of the insignia giving the buff for each time Zurgo comes out of the command zone, but the truth is we don't want him to come out 4 or 5 times. I'd rather run an enchantment like Cathars Crusade, or even something like Intangible Virtue, just to give the tokens the buff, rather than something like this, which is just very expensive. I like the idea of something like Emeria Angel, but the truth is it's just not worth it for the purposes of how little creatures are going to get. Same thing with something like Lingering Souls. I love the idea of this card. Make the tokens, flashback to make more tokens. But I think over the course of the long game, you're going to get a whole lot more out of creatures that do it on attack than you are off spells. Morbid Opportunist, again, I like the look of getting a card draw whenever one or more other creatures die, but I think when you start getting up the price and you start adding more cards, you're going to get to kind of dictate when those creatures are dying anyway, whether they're dying in combat or they're dying after combat. So I'm not worried about Morbid Opportunist because I think we can better shape our draws. Again, Ophimancer is nice. You get the snake every turn. I'd kind of rather just get them on attack so they can actually do damage and still be sacrificed for a value. Release the Dog, Shadow Summoning, half-decent token creation spells, but the truth is I prefer to do it on combat. If I was going to do just token creation spells, I would look into X spells that make tokens because then late game you can just get way more tokens out of them. Siege Gang makes sense, making the goblins and sacking the goblins. Again, just a little bit high on the rate for what I'm trying to do. And then I just cut a little bit of the ramp like Wayfarer's Bauble, even though I really like it, just to get more of that synergy. But the one thing I wanted to add this time around was what would I do next? So that was my $50 budget. What would I do next? Well, we're going to go ahead and immediately blow probably $40 more on an Elspeth Stormslayer. This is one of those cards that I think is just going to fit so well in this deck and so many other token decks. It doubles all tokens you'd make on a Planeswalker, which you're going to say, okay, Millsy, but you have Mondrak, you have Anointed Procession, you have other things like that that are cheaper than this in double tokens, and sure, you're right. But I think the thing that Elspeth does a teeny bit differently that I think makes her worth the extra mana is, one, she can make tokens herself on a plus, which is really huge, right? That it's a plus to do that. But her 0, I think, is really underrated for what it's going to give you. You put a counter on each creature you control, and they get flying until your next turn. And that's important because I think people just look at our attacking creatures and they go, oh, well, they don't matter. And no, Elspeth won't give flying to the creatures we make during combat, but some of our creatures are going to start to get scary when they become 4/4, 5/5s in the air, and you're dealing with all the tokens that are coming in. You're going to guarantee extra damage through if your opponent doesn't have those flying blockers. I think it's important to think about that. Up the Mishra round, we have Severina Rain, a very similar ability, just a teeny bit different. She has to attack in order to get it, but each opponent just loses X, where X is the number of other attacking creatures. So very similar ability, but she actually has to attack to do it. And we can pay 2 to sack another creature to gain 2 life and draw a card. So she kind of acts as both, right? That attack trigger and a sack outlet. And then Crete from Foundation's Jumpstart is a great example of a token every combat, but also 1 damage each opponent whenever a creature comes in. So it kind of gets to play that best of both worlds, and we'd love to see that. And all the slides for these Precon upgrades, I wanted to talk about lands, because I think Precon mana bases are getting a lot better. In fact, some of these lands these times around are just a little bit better. What I like in the newer Precons is they're really doing a job at reprinting the check lands and then the Innistrad slow lands from Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow. And a set of new lands I think work really well in decks that care about basic land types are the new Verges they just made in both Duskmourn and Aether Drift. All these tap for a color, tap for the other color as long as you control land of either type, and are just well worth the value for dual lands that are hopefully always going to be tapping for that color. So these would be the kind of things I'd be looking at if I was going to put more of a budget into the deck. But let's do what we love to do on the channel most and get into our playtest. The goal of our playtest in the channel is not to find magical Christmas land. It's not to determine our best plays and combos, but it's to get into game situations, understand how our deck functions, and what we can do best. Here we're keeping a 3-lander with Arcane Signet, Skull Clamp, a great way to sack tokens to draw cards. Gold Knight Commander in Plumb the Forbidden. So we've got a nice little vibe here. We see Kaya Geist Hunter. She and her -2 can actually double all the tokens you make that turn. A nice 1-turn doubler. And if you don't want to do that, her +1 just gives all your creatures Death Touch, which is really nice. Turn 1, I like the idea of getting the clamp down. Get it started for a future turn. Turn 2, we see Inevitable Defeat. It's a really nice one. Play the Arcane Signet. This is just working our way towards Zergo. Here we're going to get in the Windbrisk Heights. We Hideaway Forest. We look at the top 4 cards. And on a turn where we attack with 3 or more creatures, we can pay a white to play one of these things for free. I like this commander deck version of Nariv is interesting. Whenever it enters, it makes a couple tokens. Then whenever you attack, you get to search for some cards. Will of the Mardu's fun. can make you a bunch of warriors or deal some damage out. I think I kind of like the Will of the Mardu there, just so we know it's there, and now we have options for it. And I think we just set up Zurgo for next turn, get it ready to start mobilizing, right? And get it ready to start working for us. We missed the land here on turn 4, but that's a-okay. We've still got 4 mana. Adeline's a great option, can start getting those tokens, and then we could still clamp one to draw a couple cards. We could get Gold Knight Commander in and start getting the buffs out. Aaron's kind of interesting. You can sack a creature to put a counter and everything. I kind of like the Adeline plus clamp the tokens, because what happens is we go to combat, we get a warrior, and then we get 3 humans from Adeline, right? Now these are all tapped and attacking. Zurgo had to attack in order to do that, but I think Zurgo is going to be fairly safe this early in the game. And then main 2, if any of them survived, we just clamp one of them to draw 2 cards. We were mainly looking to get a land there, but we just barely missed out. If any of these humans survive, they don't go away. Remember, the warrior automatically goes away, so we could have either we could get that damage off there, right? And we would have for the human as well. Again, we were just trying to hit a land, and we just missed it, unfortunately. Here we get the land, so we're at 5 mana. I really like Gold Knight, though, because I think now you have 4 tokens coming in. That's 4 counters right on all of our creatures. We're really starting to take advantage. Unfortunately, it loses us the Skull Clamp option, right? So that's kind of the other downside we got to think about with going that route, but I think it just feels really good. We could also look at something like Hierarchy plus Kaya this turn, give the Death Touch, make the tokens, and try to set up for next turn where we could put Gold Knight and double up from the Kaya, and it would be 4/8 counters, right? Just really big attack, right? That could be good. My thought here is plus here, put the counter on. Sorry, Kaya goes on a creature token, so I guess we'll just put it here. Go to combat, right? Warrior, 3 humans. Again, if any of them die during combat, we draw a card. Otherwise, this goes away at the end of the turn and deals 1 damage. And, I'm sure probably 1 or 2 more of the humans probably die in combat to draw some cards, right? Because people are going to jump block them. But the nice part is we come back to our turn. We're probably going to end up -2ing Kaya here to double up the tokens. We've got 7 mana. I think for here, it's just Commander and Anok. Anok can sacrifice to protect our tokens. Commander is going to give that buff. We go to attack right after ticking down Kaya, and we make 2 warriors, so +2/+2 to everything, and then 2 humans attacking each player. So everything got +8/+8 this turn, including our regular creatures, and we're just hitting hard this turn. I think this is where this Precon wants to get, if you get to see the Golden Knight Commander. But I think we kind of show what we need to do there. Like I said, the playtest number 2, keep it a 4-lander with a Viscera, Seer, and Bartolome, both great sack outlets for our creatures, and then we get to see the main set Zurgo as well. He top deck an Isshin. That's a great draw, especially when it comes to start getting more triggers. Here, actually, we can't get Grenzo down, so I think I'll get Bartolome down. Turn 3, I think we get our commander, Zurgo, down, right? Turn 4, we don't hit another red source for Grenzo, but I think I like Isshin here, just because we make 2 warriors, right? And the nice part about Bartolome, since it's an attack, it's a sacrifice that can happen at any time. If we really want the cards, sack one of them in combat, draw a card. But otherwise, sack them both main 2 to put 2 counters on Bartolome, right? To deal the damage. Either way, whether you chose cards or the damage, now we can do it for sure and grow a creature right in the process. Turn 5, rocking with 5 mana. I like Teysa here to double up on Zurgo's ability, if we want to get extra value. Grenzo could also be fun. If the things are actually hitting, we can do some things there. Battle Driver gives +2/+0 to any other creature that would come in and haste, so, those 1/1s come in as 3/1s. But I think I just like Teysa here. If someone manages to kill Bartolome, right, we can run Viscera Seer out as a backup option. But this turn we have 2 warriors attacking. Right, they have lifelink, which is nice, and then we can still sacrifice them to Bartolome. Maybe here this turn we do 1 in combat just to get a couple cards, and then 1 for 2 damage because of Teysa. And you can start to see where this nice value engine is going to start brewing itself and getting better. This turn, I might even consider something like that Divine Visitation and make them into angels instead of warriors, having them come in and hit a little bit harder. But I think I kind of like Zurgo plus Selfless Spirit. Selfless Spirit can protect our board. Go to attacks, right? Make those warriors. Now those warriors don't automatically sacrifice at end step, but I think we still want to sack them to Bartolome to grow it, still get the the card or the damage. And I think you can start to see that this is just getting better. Teysa's making the damage go off twice, making us drawing twice. Like, this is just the exact thing we want to see. And then next turn we can start mobilizing, some more with the regular Zurgo. Well, let's do one more playtest. Here we're keeping a 5-lander with Windcrag Siege and Plumb the Forbidden. So, not a bad start. Might as well get one of these tap guys in here since there's really not much we want to do on turn 1. Turn 2, I guess we can get Viscera Seer in. Feels a little awkward to just run it out. But the truth is, sometimes it's having worse something out there. Gix is a really fun ability that came in this deck. Whenever one of our creatures hit an opponent, whenever a creature hits one of our opponents, its controller may pay a life if they do draw a card. Good way to start drawing cards, especially if those tokens can get through unblocked, right? Here I think we just siege, right? Double up on the attack trigger, so now we're making 2 warriors, right? And then we could scry one with Viscera Seer if we want to. When we sacrifice the scry 1, I do believe we would draw before we scry, the way the triggers would work. But still, now we have a sack outlet to sack these creatures to. We would just continually scry 1 more and more. But the point is, now we get our choice. We could sack them during combat and draw the card. Sack them after combat, do the damage. Either way, they go away. In the next turn, you set up more mobilize. We could hold up Plumb the Forbidden. Go to combat, right? Make 2 more warriors this turn because of Zurgo attacking. Now we have the option to plumb them if we want to draw a card. If we plumb during combat after they deal damage, we're drawing 2 from Zurgo, 2 from the plumb. Right? And then, now we just got great value, right, from them. And then coming into the next turn, now Zurgo's attacking 2, so we're mobilizing 4 there because of the siege. Angel of Invention's initially 1, giving us a little buff and having it come in with some counters. But I kind of like Anim Pakal for just, again, more attack triggers, more combos, more tokens being made on combat. We got 4 mana left. We could do Gix if we want to draw. We could hold up the Grand Crescendo to give ourselves some protection because it gives our creatures indestructible, right? And again, I just think we're in great shape. Doing what we want to do, focusing on those attack triggers, and just keep getting in and in. But I'd love to know, what do you think of my $50 upgrade for Zurgo? I'm actually pretty excited to brew this one for myself. My regular brew for this is up on the channel today for about $200 or $250 of a budget. But in the future, I'll probably be covering the version I do for myself, a little bit more high dollar if you're interested in that. But that's all I have for you in this one, and I will catch you all next time.